Hey y'all, I'm Nat and welcome to a tutorial all about drawing water droplets. The steps here are pretty easy to follow, and once you have the fundamentals on how water droplets work, you'll be doodling them all by yourself in no time. I'll be guiding you through creating a water droplet and explaining what to notice or look out for when you start to observe and draw your own. Because drawing is the art of noticing, and the more you draw and the more you notice water droplets, not just during this video, but also after maybe the rain falls on your deck, you'll begin to notice more of its nuances, like the way light bounces and reflects in different lighting conditions. And the materials we're going to be using today are a white charcoal pencil, a white jelly roll pen, or whiteout or white paint will do in a pinch, pencil, and a piece of blank gray tone paper. And I'll be sure to go over all the materials in a moment. I'll also show you how to add a water droplet to a white piece of paper that already has tangles on it to give it some extra pop, some extra dynamism. The first thing I'd like you to notice about water droplets is they have very defined, crisp edges. It almost looks like they're being held together with a very thin skin. So when we first sketch out our water droplet, we're going to draw a line with a very crisp edge. So I suggest starting out with an oval-ish shape, and water droplets tend to form differently on different surfaces, which is a fun science fact for you, and something to notice when you see droplets out in the wild or perhaps on your countertop. We're going to be using this gray toned paper, and toned paper is really great because you're not starting out at zero. White paper is really nice, but when we think about paintings we see maybe in a museum or maybe at our local coffee shop or in the library, a majority of them aren't all white. The spaces that are true white are only a few tiny spots where we see little highlights where the sun or light source is directly hitting them. A majority of the canvas is more of a neutral tone, like this, diffused light. So toned paper allows us to take advantage of that and make our whites and darks really pop. So now what we're going to draw is our misshapen oval with a pencil. So if you notice right here, I'm drawing a very light line. You can maybe barely see it on the camera. And I'm holding my pencil perpendicular to the page when I draw. So I get a nice crisp line. But I'm making sure to keep my line light. This is my outline that will make sure I stay within these boundaries when I start shading and drawing. But we want it to be light enough so it's not a main feature of the drawing, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So I'm going to assume that the light source is hitting this side of my droplet. And as it does, the light is going to pass through and slightly diffuse through the opposite end of my droplet. So you have the reflection of light and the light passing through to the opposite end. So we're going to get out our white charcoal pencil now, and keeping the tip of the pencil pointed where you want the most control. So I want to make sure that I get these. I want to make sure that I keep this right inside this line because I can see the tip of the pencil point. We're going to very gently rub the charcoal onto our paper. And I'm holding my charcoal almost parallel to the page so I get that really nice, smooth marks on the paper. And you can do the same thing with a pencil. I'm not going to add too much more. I'm just going to keep that right there. I'm going to zoom in so you can get a better look at what I'm doing here. There we go. I'm not going to put too much on there. All right, now we're going to get out our pencil again, and along the edges, create those really soft shadows. So following along the outside here, using that line to help, I'm going to almost parallel to the page, start to create that cast shadow, because there is light hitting this side. So we're creating that cast shadow of light. But then right after this kind of really dark shadow, what we're going to do is we're going to bring back our white charcoal pencil. And this right here is the bounce light. So the highlights come in and out the other side, and then it kind of bounces off the surface of our table. And then we'll go back, but only just a sliver. Then we'll go back. To putting a very light cast shadow after it. And I'm holding my pencil parallel to the page to make sure I get that nice, smooth gradient. Kind of just feathering my pencil until it just kind of diffuses into the table, right like that. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to create a little bit more definition by adding a little bit of dark, keeping my pencil pointed right along the inside lines, using those light lines to help guide me. And then kind of shading in this area until it kind of gradiates into the gray of the paper. Kind of creating that very nice light gradient. And as I was kind of putting my pencil to the paper, I was being very gentle, just kind of creating very light strokes, very light marks as I was moving across. And now here's the fun part. Here's the part that I really love. It's the highlights. So in the real world, highlights might also show the reflection of the sun or the window, depending on where your droplet has formed. Today, we're just going to get the basic essence of its form down. So highlights, we want to create some diffused light around the highlight. So what I like to do is take my white charcoal pencil and just add a few very light kind of sparkly marks to my page. It's very, very light, not too dark, not a lot of pressure. And then we'll take out our Jelly Roll pen and create our really brilliant white marks. I'm just following the arc. Of this water droplet, creating kind of almost like a comma shape for the really brilliant white, and then like a little dot. And again, whiteout and paint will work in a pinch. And sometimes you need to be a little gentle with the jelly roll as you're making your marks. Nice light presses will actually get you more white. All right. Look at that. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're just going to define some of these lines just a little bit more, going over the light lines just a little bit, creating those really dark marks. Maybe adjusting our shadow accordingly, making sure that we keep our pencil almost parallel to the page to make sure we get really smooth marks. Feather that edge to make sure we get that nice tapered look. Making sure we also create that little depth, roundedness, because right now what we're looking at is we're looking at the top of the water droplet. And there we go. So I hope that this little mini tutorial helps you get the general idea of the concept of how we work with water droplets and what their basic composition is. So now what we're going to do is we're going to apply some of these concepts that we've learned from our gray toned paper over to a white tile that already has tangles on it. So for this, what you can do is you can take it in two different directions. You can either try to follow maybe something that's already there and create a water droplet around that kind of like curved petal or another kind of curve of a tangle. Or you can draw the water droplet so that it looks like this water droplet is sitting on top of maybe a photograph or a picture of this tangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the easy route today. And I'm just going to create a water droplet that just kind of sits on top of this petal here. And again, what I'm doing is I'm creating those nice light lines, so same concepts as before, nice crisp edge. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit more. All right, so we have our crisp edge. Now with the white, what we need to do is we need to create that kind of toned background. So how we do that is we take our pencil here and very gently we fill in this little area with very light gray marks, because there is some kind of there is a little bit of diffusion for the water droplet. It's not perfectly white. It's a little clear, but it's not perfectly clear. So we want to make sure we add some diffused light by adding a little bit of gray to that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to assume that the light is coming from this direction. So based off of what we know from the last water droplet, we're going to create a little bit of diffused light with our white charcoal pencil. Just a little bit, not too much. And then again, we're going to create that sense of shadow. And with this, what we could do is we could actually skip that little section to illustrate maybe a little bit of white light being cast. But I'm gonna just add that little extra in there. And then we're going to create that nice crisp edge where that cast shadow is going to make sure that it looks really nice, really crisp. And then again, we're going to go on this other side here and create a little bit more darkness till we move back into it being relatively gray. Create that nice gradient. You can go over. It's always better to create lighter marks than darker marks because you can always add more darkness later. And then last final touch, we create that really bold highlight, create almost like a comma shape with our white jelly roll pen over top of our graphite here to really give it that pop. And what I might do is I'm going to add just a little bit more graphite to really make sure that that white jelly roll really stands out. Sometimes when we do these things, we need to just make slight adjustments based off of what we're seeing. And I almost forgot, we want to add just a little bit of diffused light with our white charcoal pencil. So just dabbing very lightly with our white charcoal pencil. Making sure we create that nice gradiated line. And there we go. We have a nice water droplet on a pre-existing tangle right there, just nestled right on top of that flower. So as you can see, you can still see a part of the tangle. We want to make sure we can get that sense that we can still see through just a little bit with our tile and our tangle. And sometimes you need to layer just a little bit with your jelly roll, depending on how fussy it's being. All right. So this is how we create water droplets. I hope this little mini tutorial has made water droplets more approachable for you. Remember to practice and fill your drawing encyclopedia with all different kinds of droplet drawings. The more you draw something, the more things you'll come to notice about it. Lastly, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And also, thank you to my Patreon supporters for making this video possible. Your support means I can make more videos like these. Patreon supporters also receive additional tutorials, worksheets, and some mailed goodies at certain tiers. So until next time, keep drawing. You're doing great. Cheers.